You're good? Everybody's saying hi, so. Well, good evening and welcome to your town hall. Having reached the hour of 6 o'clock, I hereby call to order the meeting of the Sahuarita Town Council and also inform everybody that, as always, tonight's meeting will be broadcast live. Before I get to the invocation and the pledge, I just wanted to begin and take a moment to acknowledge that today marks the 1 year since the tragic car accident that took the life of 20-year-old Thomas Ayala. The Ayala family honored Thomas this morning, with the Native American tradition of a symbolic journey to bring him home walking Old Nogales Highway. We want to extend our deepest condolences to Gabrielle, Juanita, and the entire Ayala family. And at this time, I'll just ask for a quick moment of silence in memory. Thank you. Tonight's invocation will be given by Beth Abramovitz, our Assistant Town Manager, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Christian Hess, a 9th grade student at Liberty Youth Academy. Beth?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So in Judaism, blessings are a challenge to live life slower, to pause and appreciate what may be missed. They are a way to give thanks and try to discover more goodness in the world and in ourselves. The Birkat HaSha'ar blessing is one we typically say in the morning to challenge ourselves to be a source of strength and support for each other. However, as giving strength and supporting people is hopefully why we are all here, I felt it was appropriate to say now. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hanoten laef koah. Thank you, God, for giving strength to the weak.
Thank you. Kristen?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for you both being here. I appreciate it. And I know it is good to slow down a little bit, but I never want to be so slow as the federal government. So we'll move at the pace of Sahuarita as we move forward. Next, we come to roll call. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Braca.
Here.
Councilmember Davis. Here. Councilmember Gillespie.
Here.
Councilmember Morales. Here. Councilmember Priolo. Here. Vice Mayor Egbert.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thanks. I have two presentations tonight. The first one I'll present will be a proclamation declaring the month of May as Building Safety Month to Bill R., our building official, and Drew Salcido, Senior Permit Technician. If you both join me at the podium. Whereas the town of Sahuarita is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depend on the safety and essential role our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the building that make up our communities is achieved through the modern building codes and the devotion of our building safety, fire prevention officials, plans, examiners, inspectors, permit technicians, architects, engineers, tradespeople, and others in the construction industry who work to ensure the safe construction of buildings, and whereas the International Code Council sponsors Building Safety Month to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our building safety staff, and fire prevention partners, who assure us of a safe, resilient buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential services provided to all of us by local and state building departments and fire prevention agencies in protecting lives and property. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Tom Murphy, the mayor of the town of Sahuarita, on behalf of the town council, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2024 as Building Safety Month, in testimony whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the town of Sahuarita on this 13th day of May 2024. Congratulations.
Well, good evening, Mayor Murphy, council, and staff. My name is Drew Salcido, and on behalf of Anna, Bill, and all of Building Safety, which is now Community Development, we would like to thank you for taking this time to acknowledge our department during this month of May, which is Building Safety Month. By working together and spreading awareness of building codes and the role they play in ensuring safety in the built environment, we can protect the spaces we live, work, play, and learn in. Building safety should never be taken for granted, and I'm very pleased to know that we do not take it for granted in the town of Sahuarita. So again, I say thank you and have a wonderful night.
Next, I will present a proclamation declaring May 19th through the 25th as National Public Works Week. And will Nalo, our Public Works Director, please step forward. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the town of Sahuarita. And whereas these infrastructure facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to our citizens. Whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the town of Sahuarita to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in the respective communities. Whereas 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Whereas I urge all of our people to join with the representatives of the American Public Works Association in government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Now, therefore, it be resolved that I, Tom Murphy, the mayor of the town of Sahuarita, on behalf of the town council, do hereby proclaim May 19th through the 25th, 2024, as National Public Works Week, in testimony whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the town of Sahuarita on this 13th day of May, 2024. Congratulations, Tom. Thank you, Mayor. Speech. Take all the time you want.
Good evening, Mayor Murphy, members of the council. I just want to say thank you very much to the mayor and the council, town management, the community, and as well as my fellow department directors and their staff, Chief Nolan, Anna Cassidy, Lisa, Devin. I just want to thank you guys for all your support with our department. So thank you.
Thanks, Nalo. Appreciate it. All your hard work. This time, I'll open up call to the public. I don't have any cards. It's been a long time since I've said that at this council meeting. Would anybody like to address the council at this time? Seeing no movement, I will close the call to the public and move on to council and town manager brief summary of current events. Councilman Bracco.
Nothing for me.
Simon? Yep. Diane? Kara?
I just wanted to, between now and the next council meeting, we will be having our 2024 graduates for the high
Yes.
school. So I wanted to congratulate all of their accomplishments as they start their life into adulthood.
Thank you. And I wanted to...
That was 35.
What's that?
I thought that was 35, 55.
55.
No.
We're working on that still. And I wanted to thank some of our staff members. As some of you may know, we had a Congressional Judiciary Committee hearing here on Friday, which is our town's 410 day off. And I received so much feedback, both for our police presence and cooperation. So it was Commander Amato that was here and helped out with various police officers. They were very appreciative of our town clerk, Lisa Cole, and the folks for helping set that up, and our IT people, especially Ron and Jorge, that really helped out. We had nothing but really positive comments when the subcommittee was featuring the border crisis and the fentanyl. It was especially when the mom testified about losing 2 of her children to fentanyl. It was a extremely hard testimony to hear on there, so I just wanted to pass on my appreciation. I know a couple of us attended the Sunset Market. I missed you. You were over there before I was. But again, props to our Park and Rec department for putting on these various events, all the way from the higher level signature events to some of our smaller ones. I know it was a lovely night and had vendors and working with a lot of our community partners, so we're appreciative of that. Good music. And this Wednesday, we're doing the Ride of Silence out of support with our Park and Rec department, as well as our police officers. That was typically run by the Green Valley bike group, and they've sort of aged out of doing that, and so we picked up that event. So that'll be this Wednesday. And I was going to touch on, the graduates next week, and hopefully everybody will make good choices and be safe next week on graduation. And then also to our community partners within our faith community, May 2nd was National Prayer Day, and they organized 5 different events that day within our community, and I was able to attend 3 of those. So it's just about the community coming together and working together, which was another example of that. So thanks for everybody for all their hard work in doing that. And at this time, Mr. Dilly, would you like to report on anything?
Yeah, just quickly, Mayor and Council, we're well into the month of May, and June basically wraps up our fiscal year 24. A lot of things trying to get packed into a couple of months, namely the adoption of your fiscal year 25 budget. Later this afternoon, this evening, we'll talk about some follow-up items to your budget retreat, and then that all preps us well for the presentation of your tentative budget for approval. Remember that the tentative budget really kind of sets in place the expenditure limitation for the community as we go into fiscal year 25. And then in June, you'll be presented with your final budget adoption. So we're looking forward to all of that with the council. Really appreciate your participation in the retreat itself. So thank you for your time and commitment. And then I just wanted to let you know, as we did 2 years ago, for every election where we have council member seats up for question, we will be doing a council candidate orientation in June. We haven't picked a date yet, but it's forthcoming, and we look forward to that as a good intro to our council candidates and helping them hit the ground running when and if they're elected, which I know that the outcome in this one is certain. So
Everybody's on pins and needles.
Everybody's on pins and
needles.
needles. But in that case, but we definitely do this, and I think it's helpful for our council candidates to hit the ground running when they get elected. Thank you.
Thank you. And as a reminder, our next council meeting is May 28th, which is a Tuesday, because Memorial Day is on Monday. And, as we take a restful day, I just hope everybody reflects on what Memorial Day is and the loss. We enjoy all these freedoms because of the the group of our veterans that, gave all to help protect that. So we just hope we reflect on that as we celebrate on Monday, holiday. Madam Clerk, item number 8, please.
Presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding state and federal legislative activities, including a brief report on the town of Sauterito's delegates' visit to Washington, D.C.
Thank you. And Nathan Barrett, our management analyst, will introduce the item, and we have Bob Holmes and Anna Ma from Nexus Consultants that will be also presenting that item. So Nathan?
Yep.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm trying
You're ready
something
to go.
different this
Yeah,
month.
absolutely.
In an effort to constrain me and keep me within time frames, we're going to try this without any slides.
Okay.
So, well, that, and I really don't have a whole lot to update you on the state front. I've got 3 items that I just want to touch on really quickly. First, the budget. We have no real definitive news on the budget. What I said to you last month on that topic still holds. I have heard rumors that we may see a budget as soon as next week, but those are only rumors. Second item I want to update you on is the meeting that the mayor and Shane and I had this morning with some other staff with Senator Gabaldon and Representative Stahl Hamilton. It was a fantastic confab in which we were able to sit down and talk about great things that are going on in the town, things that we're concerned about, both at the federal and the state level. We talked about some specific legislative bills, and it was just a really great meeting of minds. Went so great, in fact, that we're going to try to set up a couple more of these meetings with other members of the state legislature that represent parts of the town. So those will be, hopefully, get scheduled within the next month or so. And then the third item, I just want to call your attention to 2 legislative bills that are still live. And by some fluke of fate, their numbers are sequential, 2719 and 2720. So don't know what the chances of that are, and maybe only a numbers nerd like me can really appreciate that. 2719 is the bill that would utterly kneecap a town's ability to pass a bond by invalidating any bond election that doesn't have at least a 60% turnout. I've been beating this drum all session. You've heard me talk about this before. The update on this, it did pass out of the House, its House of Origin. It went through committee in the Senate, and from there it has stalled. There has been no movement on that bill in about a month or so. What we're hoping, though, is that we can wrap up this session quickly enough, because the longer the session goes on, the legislature is going to start looking around and looking for bills that aren't moving and say, well, we need to do something, here's something, let's do this. So the sooner we can get the budget passed and adjourned for the year, the sooner 2719 can go away. 2720 is a housing bill. It passed out of the House, went to the Senate. In the Senate, it was amended on the floor and then got passed, so it's going to go back to the House now because of those amendments that were tacked onto it on the Senate. This bill mostly deals with ADUs and really limits towns' ability to create their own regulations regarding ADUs, accessory dwelling units. I don't need to tell you, but I know this council has spent hours and hours on that issue over multiple meetings. The last thing we need right now is for the state to step in and say, well, all that hard work that you went in studying the issue, listening to the community, forget about it. We're going to make you do what we think is best for everyone. So we are lobbying pretty hard against 2720, or at least to make sufficient changes to 2720 that it doesn't totally stink. So those are my 3 updates. At this point, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Bob Holmes, who's going to give us a federal update, and hopefully Anna will also be able to chime in as well.
Good evening, welcome. There's a little button on the top right, bottom.
I think it's on, right?
Yes, it is, but if you want to raise the whole podium, there's a little switch.
Bottom right.
Bottom right.
Of the podium.
Yep, right there.
Is that good?
Yep, the whole thing will raise up to you. There you go.
Oh, my gosh.
Hey.
Is this like Michael Dukakis' thing where they raise up? Saturday Night Live? Thank you.
It's too tall for me, though.
Right, then you go back down.
Thank you, Nathan, and it's been great partnering with you and with Shane and Beth and your whole team here. We really do appreciate it. Mayor and Vice Mayor, it's good to see you again, and council members. It's good to be here. We really appreciate you coming out to DC. I think it was a really good trip. Before we kind of get to the trip in DC, I just wanted to give you an update on the budget, what to expect this coming year, and then we'll talk a little bit about the trip. And of course, we want to answer any questions that you might have. First of all, when we were first brought on by the city end of last year, the Campbell Road extension was still hanging out there, and we worked with you, and we talked to Congressman Siscomani, our senators, and we were able to get that. So, by the time we were hired, and then by the time we started working on this, the budget didn't come through for fiscal year 24 until March. Of course, the fiscal year ends in September, so we're about 6 months in. So we worked really hard on that issue, and we were great to see that. And hopefully that money's going to come through ADOT really quickly here, and we can get that extension done so you can have that connectivity. So we're really excited about that, which kind of segues into this year and the requests we've made. We worked really closely with you and the team to put together five requests. We lots of really good projects. The reality is, for instance, Senator Kelly got over 700 CDS, congressionally directed spending requests this year. Of those, he's going to probably make 200 requests, and the reality is he's probably going to get 50 to 70. The good news is we've been talking with our senators, and we've got it under pretty good authority. We've met with their appropriations staffer that they will make the requests for the odor control. We also understand that Congressman Siscomani is going to be making the request for police equipment. So we feel really good about our positioning. So the senators will put out their list of requested projects in the next 2 weeks, so we should find that out. Senator Kelly is going to do that in the next 2 weeks. It's going to be on a rotating basis for Senator Sinema. Senator Sinema's, they're required by the rules of the Senate. After each appropriations bill, the deadline passes. 2 weeks later, they have to disclose on their website all of their appropriations requests. The only appropriations bill that has had a deadline so far is the agriculture appropriations bill. So that was last Thursday that was due. So in 2 weeks from Thursday, which will be the 23rd, we will find out who she requested under those projects, and it'll be kind of on a rolling basis. On the House side, Congressman Siscomani and the members of the House, Congressman Siscomani, Congressman Grijalva has already made his request. Congressman Siscomani will be releasing his requests probably at the end of this week, as will Congressman Gallego, who now has a statewide profile, and Congressman Stanton, who has a very keen interest in statewide issues. So we'll find out where we are with regards to the House on that. So that I'll quickly stop and see if you guys, I kind of went through that really quickly, see if you have any questions about appropriations, then we'll get into the trip, which was a lot of fun too.
Thanks. Any questions on the appropriations part? No. Thank you. Please continue.
Mayor, I just wanted to point out, between those two projects, I think we're easily in the realm of $3 million. Is that about right?
I think was Nalo still here? I think the odor control was, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it was $2.5 million. I think it was on the higher side. And then the police equipment
just
was
under $1 million. I think
just
it was
under,
like $900,000 or something like that. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all the hard work on that. Absolutely.
Well, we're going to have to continue to work on this because similar to last year, we do not expect, especially in an election year, that we will get all the appropriations bills completed by September 30th, which is the end of the fiscal year.
Right.
So they'll likely do a continuing resolution, and we'll likely see a similar scenario.
Same train we were on last year, right?
Unfortunately, yes. But it's not a good way to do business. But as you said earlier, the federal government moves very slow, and sometimes that means they pass their bills after the fiscal year has started. So that's kind of where we are. So with regards to the trip, I think it was a fantastic trip, and Mayor and Councilmember Morales, you did an incredible job advocating for the city, for the town rather. And, we had 10 meetings over 2 days. We met with the Army Corps twice to talk about some of our wastewater and some of our other issues, our flood and water infrastructure issues.
And the
then we
the FUD site, the
and the
formerly used
FUDs,
as
that's a bad word. What the FUDs are you doing over here? Formerly used defense site, of course. So, yeah, Rascally Rabbit. So we met with them twice. We got to meet with both senators, which was a great honor. And both senators said they'd support some of our projects, which was great to see. And we met with Congressman Ciscomani, Congressman Grijalva staff, obviously. That's the reason Anna was not here today. She was with Congressman Grijalva, her former boss. He was recovering from cancer, and we're proud to report he's doing very well. And we got to meet with Congressman Stanton's staff and others too. It was a really good trip. With regards to the FUDs, I think that's a really big issue right now. And Nathan and I went out there this afternoon, and there are signs up now. Unfortunately, we got to see the proximity it is to Walden Groves and to the high school, which is a little disconcerting, to be frank with you. When I initially talked to Shane about this project, and we talked to Shane about this project, it was the 20 to 30 year process that we were looking at. The good news is we got to meet with Laura Beasley, who is the head of the of all the FUDs, and she basically said to us, this is our time frame. It's going to be about $120 million project, because they're going to have to take up all the vegetation. They're going to have to dig 4 feet below the surface and clear all the possible munitions. There are a couple sites, and what they would do, they do it in a phased process and do the parts that are closest to Walden Grove High School and kind of work their way eastward. So it wouldn't be all at once, but this is a $120 million project. We also learned in that is that the total budget for FUDs for the entire United States is $240 million a year. Having said that, there's about 8 different processes we need to go through, feasibility study, all the way through, and we have enough funding, and they have programmed us for funding through the record of decision, which will be in about 2 to 3 years. The other piece of good news is we're on about a 5 or 6 years until we are going to actually hit construction, where they'll start doing that. So while we thought we were on a 20-year process, we're going to be on a lot quicker process. After you all left, we were able to meet with the Army Corps of Engineers, their LA district, and we were able to meet with Justin Gay. Laura Beasley had called her and had asked specifically that they need to make a trip out there. So we're working with the Army Corps to plan a trip out here. And of course, one of our messages is going to be is that we are a growing town and that we need to have this site for future development as soon as possible. So that's going to be part of the message. So the other meetings, we met with our delegation. We talked about our appropriations request, and the timing was really good because within that week they're going to officially make their requests. So they've made those requests. We're waiting now, and the next couple of weeks we should find out about where we are with our requests. So is there anything else we need to add? I got up at 1 a.m. local time here this morning to get on a plane to get here, but it's great to be here, so maybe my mind's not working as well. But again, we're really proud of our partnership with you all. We look forward to bringing home more federal dollars. We look forward to expediting that FUDs project, and we look to continue to continued success working with the town.
Right. Well, we appreciate all your efforts. I remember the first day of the meetings with the Corps. The next day, we weren't planning on meeting with Ms. Beasley. And I think because of the success and the connections that you were able to establish, all of a sudden she joined the meeting. And when you're talking about LA and kind of paying attention, when they were here presenting, the feeling I think we had at that time that we weren't really on the radar for sure, based on some of the feedback the council gave to them during that presentation. So, I think all of it was very successful, but the FUDs specifically, establishing that relationship with the Army Corps, I think we're leaps and bounds ahead on timeline and all of the above.
Mayor?
Yes.
In fact, that first meeting with the Army Corps, it was apparent that when we got to the second meeting, it was obvious that they had talked to Region 9 to get the more specifics, ground level, boots
Right.
on, what's happening there so that they could talk to us. So
And maybe
makes a
why
difference.
things weren't happening as almost as much as anything else. So, and I was impressed because, when you think of the federal bureaucracy, I was really impressed with the folks that we worked with, at the highest levels of, government. So they listened. I think they were attentive and kind. And it wasn't sort of that bureaucracy that I sort of expected to see. Oh, here's another group of people coming from where in Arizona, to speak to us. So I really appreciate both of your efforts on setting that up. And it was fast and furious. Good thing, you knew how to drive in DC quickly and find parking spaces because, it was fast.
I've mastered parallel parking. But no, I think to your point, Mayor, and I think it's a really good point, is that those trips are really important. If you guys are there, people listen. And the interesting thing about those bureaucracies is when you talk to the folks at the top, it
Right.
trickles down.
Right.
But what rarely happens is when you talk to the folks here, it trickles up.
Right.
So when those people dictate, it usually means that things are going to get done. And that's why I think we're able to make some real movement on, especially on that FUDS issue.
Right, and to knowing that they're open to phasing it. When we learned that one project takes half of their full year's budget, and I think it was over 1,000 different sites across the country, and we learned that we're number 2 in Arizona, and maybe because of some issues up in Kingman that really we're probably number 1 on actually getting it done. So the amount of information that I learned that I think is going to be very helpful on our planning efforts and our expectation on these timelines and things. Debbie, did you want to add anything to it? No? Any other comments, questions? No? Thanks for being here and get some sleep. You're welcome to stick around, but
Looking forward to it.
Caffeinated, so.
Oh, there you go. Thanks.
Thank
a lot.
you all, Mayor and
Appreciate
Council. Thank you. Have a great day.
Next is our consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. And all in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, item number 10.
Presentation of the Global Water Resources Incorporated Annual Report for Farmers and Las Quintas Serenas Water Companies, including updates on projects, water quality, rate case information, customer service, and water resources.
Thank you. Mr. Dilly will start the conversation, but we have John Corwin, Vice President and General Manager, here. Jake Lenderking, I think he's the one.
Virtual.
Virtual. He's the Senior Vice President of Water Resources and Legislative Affairs. And Eric is here. Nice to see you, Eric, Regional Manager of Global Water Resources. And all of everybody collectively, but did you want to start it off, Shane, with a little bit of introduction, or let's just roll into it?
Yep, we can just roll into it, Mayor. Just wanted to acknowledge the commitment to the MOU between the town and Global Water. This is a byproduct of that. Global Water's commitment to come and present their annual report to town council in support of that partnership and in good faith. I really wanted to just call out and recognize that effort.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
I would ditto that. I know you and I have met regularly, which they committed to, but committing and doing are two different things. So I appreciate, the interaction that you've had in keeping us up to date. So with that, please.
Thank you. It is a partnership. So for the folks here that don't know who I am the Regional Manager for Global Water Resources. So I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations. And 2 of those utilities are the Global Water Farmer System and the Global Water Las Quintas Serenas Water System. So like Shane touched upon, we're going to be doing a high-level overview of the annual report. We're going to discuss some of the 2023 projects, some of the projects we're currently underway in 2024, some of the future projects. We're also going to provide a quick update on PFAS. The US EPA made a federal rulemaking on that. And then we'll switch over to a rate case update, basically go over the rate case process, the customer outreach that we've performed so far to date, and that we'll continue to do as the process moves along. And the case overview, takeaways, and then finally Jake will wrap up with a water resources update. So Shane stole a little bit of my thunder.
We can do the pledge again, if you'd like. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, so we did sign a memorandum of understanding in 2022. It was specific to the Global Water Farmers Utility, but we also provide updates on the Global Water Las Quintas, since they're both in Cerrito proper. First, I'll touch on some of the 2023 projects that we performed. So the biggest piece for us was integrating our different software platforms into the utility. One of them is the call center and after-hour 24/7 call center for our customers. We've also implemented our asset management software, which is a asset maintenance tracking software system to make sure that we're doing our annual preventative maintenance. And then we also implemented our GIS deployment, which gives us real-time data in the field with infrastructure, and it allows us to pull from the system our digitized as-builts. We've also enhanced the information technology and operational technology security. We have a robust safety and compliance program, which we now apply to Global Farmers and Global Las Quintas. And then we did it basically, we integrated all of our technology with the anticipation that it improves workflow efficiency and improves record retentions. And then finally, we did incorporate the Global Water Farmers utility system into the low-income tariff, similar to the Las Quintas Serenas water system. First project I'm going to touch on is we completed the Las Quintas Serenas water model, basically a water model from an engineering and operations perspective. It's a hydraulic model that allows us to identify potential areas of concerns in the water utility. It also gives us the ability, if we're going to make improvements, that we can see how the system responds under a variety of different scenarios. And then one of the biggest pieces of the LQS water hydraulic model is we're trying to find a way to find a cost-effective way where we can provide fire flow to the Las Quintas Serenas water utility. So right now we're in discussions with a second engineering firm to see if we can come up with some creative ideas and how we can keep the process moving along. The next project I wanted to touch on, currently underway but started in 2023, is the advanced metering infrastructure, sometimes referred to as what we call smart meters. So we went through the process and we applied for a grant through WIFA, which is the Water Infrastructure Financial Arizona Authority. I believe I got that right. Anyways, they approved us for a $1.6 million grant, which is great because it offsets the rate impacts to the customers. And then finally, the customers will have the ability to go into our customer portal. The software obtains reads every 15 minutes, and our customers can check this data in hourly interviews. It also reduces our man hours by 90% for meter reading. And then any consumer that has this technology has the ability to set up their account portal to receive leak alerts. So if they typically use 150 gallons of water per day, for some reason they're using 200, they can get an alert on their phone or through text or email or a phone call, alerting to them that they have significantly higher usage than normal. So this way they can address it right away instead of finding out at the end of the month when they get their next bill. They had a toilet leaking at, say 2 gallons a minute for 30 days.
Eric, on that point, how outdated, and you can touch on either FICO and Las Quintas, how outdated do you think technology was kind of across the platform compared to other water companies that either you have acquired and updated?
It's similar. It's very outdated,
Right.
quite frankly, if it even existed.
Thanks.
Another project that we're excited about is the Global Water Farmers Master Planning. Basically, we have gotten together and partnered with an outside engineering firm, utilizing our in-house engineers to create a dynamic water model to analyze the water system. And it's similar to the Las Quintas Serenas hydraulic water model. Again, it's allows us to identify areas of potential concern, see how the system will behave with proposed improvements. But the beauty of the master planning is it also creates a framework for utility growth for the next 40 years. We incorporated the FICO specific plans into the plan, and we also touched base with development here in the town. Got their 5, 10, 15, 20-year outlook, and all that information is incorporated into the master plan, and we're in the process of completing that project. So more to come. Next, I'll touch on some of the projects we're currently underway. We already touched on the advanced metering infrastructure that's currently underway. We're putting meters in the ground. But what we're doing with the farmers' utilities, we're adding supervisory control and data acquisition, commonly referred to as SCADA. It increases security and decreases vulnerabilities, gives us the ability as operators to see data in real time. My favorite attribute of SCADA is watching trending. We can watch trends where we can notice a pump might be running 2 hours more than normal, and then eventually 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. So before we experience catastrophic failure, we can go ahead and be proactive, investigate the cause of the issue with the pump, and replace it. I guess you're all familiar with this building. So this is Samtec building. As you know, we've entered in a 10-year lease with the town of Sahuarita. We have completed the 100% designs that are currently under review with the town. We expect our grand opening hopefully in Q3 of 2024. And what we're really excited about is it gives us a regional office in southern Arizona where we can deploy our technology improvement assets. And some of those things are the advanced metering infrastructure, some of our asset the city works that I believe the town is looking at, and the supervisory control and data acquisition. So we're really excited to get into the
Eric,
into
did
the
you already
space.
put your sign logo up on that building?
I did. I wanted
Yeah,
to make it look realistic.
I saw that Photoshop. Thank you. That's excitement right there, everybody.
It is exciting. We're all looking forward to it. So one of the projects we identified is the Cerrito Highlands Cerrito Water Distribution Center, excuse me. It's one of our sites that has a well, pumps, storage tanks, and really poor power grid at this location. So we experienced over 9 power outages during the monsoon. We realized it's not an acceptable product to be given to our consumers, so we budgeted and planned for and are currently underway of installing emergency backup power at this location. We're hoping to have it completed before the monsoon season, but it will be completed this year, and those folks in Cerrito Highlands, when they lose power, they'll still have water. And just a few other projects we're looking at. The Santa Rita water system, which is in the southern part of our CCNN, or service area, is in Green Valley. It's a large system, and we're looking at additional sources to supplement our current well productions. We're also exploring the opportunity for an interconnect with community water. And as always, the guys are always grinding with hydrant and valve maintenance, so we always have money in the budget. Once we identify a valve that's broken or a hydrant that's broken, we replace them immediately. Just some of the planned and potential projects. We're also looking at emergency backup power at our Madera Highlands WDC and our Continental WDC, again, water distribution centers. So in the event we lose power, we can still provide the customers with adequate water. I touched on the Santa Rita Springs. Hopefully, if we can identify a new source, then in the future, the next step would be to begin the well construction. A couple other projects, we're looking at multiple tank rehabs. We're looking at exploring for additional sources in our continental system. And we want to install the installation of cathodic protection in our storage tanks, which will prolong the life of the storage tanks. PFAS updates, also known as, and I've been practicing, it's polyfluoroalkyl substances. It's a man-made chemical used to make anything resistant to water, heat, or oil. It's commonly found in various household items. It's in our carpets to make it water and stain resistant. It's in our shampoos, it's in our makeups, it's in our food wrappers. It's everywhere, unfortunately. 20% of human exposure is through our drinking water. The other 80% is through household items. The US EPA made a ruling this year, which is great from a utility perspective because now we finally have direction on how to proceed to mitigate any PFAS that we may have in our systems. It's going to regulate 6 compounds. The US EPA has deemed that all utility providers must sample by 2027. Global was proactive. We completed all of our source sampling for PFAS. And then the US EPA has mandated that all utilities have until 2029 to put in the proper treatment if PFAS is identified in one of their sources. So out of the 6 wells in Farmers, 1 did test over the EPA regulated level. That is in our Santa Rita public water system. It was less than 5 parts per trillion. The MCL, or the maximum contaminant level for PFAS, is 4 parts per trillion.
Is that the new one, Eric, or the old one? The new standard or the old standard?
It's the new finalized
The new
standard.
finalized
It
standard,
was,
thanks.
it just recently finalized with the US EPA. Just to put in perspective of what 1 part per trillion is, if you're carrying a 10-gallon bucket of water and 1 drop falls out, that's 1 part per trillion. So we have to find a way to effectively treat 4 drops of water, or to get it less than 4 drops of water out of that 10 gallons. We've engaged with Garber Engineering, another engineering firm that we've done some work with, and we're in the process of looking for treatment options, which include anion exchange and granular activated carbon. For the public outreach piece, our consumer confidence report will be going out in May or June of this year, and the information will be provided to our consumers at that time. And just as a side note, all the global water LQS, or Las Quintas, sources came back negative for PFAS. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Corwin for the rate case update.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. And a lot of slides I'm going to move through pretty quickly. And thank you, Mayor and council members, for the opportunity to present. But I'll move through quickly. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know so I can stop and answer those along the way. But I do want to, in the interest of time, move quickly here. So as Eric touched on, I'm going to give a quick update on our Las Quintas Serenas Water Company rate case that's in process, and then give a quick preview on our Farmers Water Company rate application that we're planning to file in about a month. So quickly on Las Quintas Serenas, so you'll remember we filed that rate application last June, and really the need there was the amount of investment that we've had to make into that utility, a troubled utility at the time of acquisition. And so our proposal was for a $6.65 increase. That went through a thorough audit by the Arizona Corporation Commission staff. They came back with a recommendation of $3.22. So we accepted that recommendation. It moved forward to the administrative law judge for her review. Actually, since these slides have been made, she's issued her recommended opinion and order, and that will ultimately go to the 5 elected commissioners for a vote. And so we think this will be likely wrapped up here in the coming months. I think ultimately the takeaway is that it's a balance between customers and their bills, and also the utility being able to continue to invest in ensuring that we are able to provide safe and reliable water service. So I think this application struck a good balance there. Quickly on the Farmers Water Company pending rate application. So just a quick overview of that. I'll give a kind of a high level update on that. Utility overview, specifically what makes up the Farmers Water Company. I'll go very briefly into the ACC rate making process and kind of what we've done from a customer outreach, some specifics of the application that we're going to make, and then some summary and takeaways of that. So quickly, like I said, we're filing a rate application for Farmers Water Company. Again, that's to help offset some of the capital investments that we're making and will continue to make, in addition to the customer service enhancements that we've made for that utility specifically. And also the current costs for that utility are based on 2017 expenses, so obviously significant inflation since then. Again, we're trying to take a very measured and balanced approach to that rate application. And the process will take until middle of 2025 so no changes in rates until 2025 if anything is approved to be changed. So quickly, an overview of the Farmers Water Company utility. Again, it's made up of 4 public water systems, so 4 independent systems. About 70% of the customer count is within the town of Sahuarita city limits. About 30% is in the Green Valley area. Directly adjacent to our Las Quintas Serenas system, and underway. We've made significant capital investments, and we'll continue to do that over the coming years as well. So the actual process, these are included kind of for reference on the ACC facts and backgrounds. I think that the high-level important part on the process is it goes through a very thorough audit through the ACC staff and other interveners that may intervene. Ultimately, again, similar to the Las Quintas case, it will be reviewed by the judge at the ACC and then ultimately voted on by the 5 elected commissioners to approve or amend or change the decision ultimately. And again, that will likely take 12 plus months to accomplish. So that's kind of a quick outline of that. Again, I think the highlight there is no changes in rates until June or July of next year. So on the customer outreach front, there we go. Eric's been putting a lot of work in here, meeting with HOA board members. I think of the 11 HOAs that we serve that have over 100 dwelling units. Eric's been able to meet with 7 of those. The other 4 we've reached out to, but have been unable to meet with them so far. We've been able to meet with the Sahuarita School District as well. After the actual filing next month, we want to make a second round of meetings with HOAs. We also are planning probably in June or July to hold an open meeting for the public, similar to what we did with Las Quintas Serenas. We actually used this room and had a public meeting there. So we plan to do something similar to that for this rate case, so public can come and ask questions and express any concerns that they may have. So some high-level elements of the actual rate case. So really the drivers on that, inflation, again, as I mentioned, the rates are based on 2017 expenses. The rates that are currently in place are artificially low. We've made a lot of efforts in input into enhancing the customer experience. We're making significant capital investments, as Eric described in his portion, and we'll continue to make investments in the coming years. And so I'll detail each of these elements in the next few slides. So like I mentioned, significant inflation since 2017, which are the rates are currently based off about 25% of inflation since that time frame. And we've seen, I think, acute inflation in the utility industry, specifically, related to chemicals, materials and supplies, the pressure on, labor wages. An example, brass has increased significantly. We used to pay about $200 for a meter. We're now paying closer to $300 for a meter. So, we've seen significant inflation in other areas similar to that. So quickly on and what we're seeing on rates. So the Farmers Water Company, the basic charge that customers pay each month, a little over $9. We'd have to do a significant increase just to get to the average for other utilities in the area. The next closest utility, it would be a 67% increase in wages or rate just to match that utility, which I believe is Community Water. Similarly, when you factor in the average customer that uses about 3,500 gallons, again, Farmers Water is significantly below each of those other utilities that are in the immediate area. So those rates are unsustainably low, and so thus necessitating an increase to keep up with the cost of inflation. Eric talked about it a little bit, and I've talked about it a little bit as well. The efforts that we've made also on the customer service front, including the integration of our call center, after hours, additional ways to pay, the additional technology that will be put into place with the meter exchange that is ongoing. We did implement a customer assistance program for customers that need assistance. And then also through this case, we'd like to implement a conservation rebate threshold. So that means customers that use under a certain volume of water, they will receive actually a rebate back. So again, encouraging customers to conserve water, which is obviously very important in the arid or the desert Southwest. Capital investments, Eric's kind of gave you the highlights of that, but we do have a full meter exchange underway. We've deployed our asset management and GIS systems, installing new generators, the Samtech build out. So we're investing about $2 million this year, and there's millions of dollars in future year budget as well. And actually, we're proposing to exclude the capital investment in the interest of rate gradualism from this specific rate case. So it'll be kind of kicked down the road to a later rate case to be addressed at that point in time. But again, the theory is to try to gradually increase rates versus having a big significant increase all at once. So the actual details of the proposed rate increase for, like I mentioned, the average customer who uses about 3,500 gallons per month, they're currently paying about $15. We think through the standard rate case making process, we could justify a $10 rate increase. We're not going to propose that. We're going to propose a $7 rate increase based on the data that we have and excluding some of the capital investments. And again, our proposal would phase that in over a number of periods, again, in the interest of that rate gradualism. So if approved by the ACC, it would increase the average customer from about $15 to $22 per month on their utility bill. And that's what it looks like still in comparison to other utilities in the region, still at the very bottom end of utility rates for the average customer. Touched on the customer assistance program. Again, that program for customers who may need additional assistance through this rate increase, we do offer up to $350 per year for customers to seek assistance. So that's available to customers that meet the eligibility criteria that's listed on the slide. So a couple key summary and takeaways. Again, we've made significant investments into the utility, regardless of what the ultimate approval is. The process is going to take approximately a year, and no rates will change until the middle of 2025. And we'll continue to provide updates along the way so that you know how the process is going. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jake to bring us home with a few more slides on water resources. Thank you.
Thanks. Good evening, Jake.
Good evening.
Welcome, even
Mayor.
from afar.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I only have a couple of slides, and this is one of them, so we'll go pretty quick here. Just wanted to touch on the Colorado River really briefly, Arizona regulations, and then our efforts that are specific to global water farmers here in Sahuarita. John, do you have the clicker? Yeah, next slide. Okay, thanks. The Colorado River is about the same place it's been for many months. This year's precipitation and runoff estimates are going to be about average. Right now, the precipitation and snowpack that's sitting up in the Colorado River is a little bit above normal, but runoff's expected to be lower than that. So it'll probably be a pretty average year for precipitation and runoff. In context with the greater negotiations on the Colorado River, a few months back, the basin states made this recommendation for the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement, or SEIS, and really it accounts for a systematic reduction in water over the next few years. It's well within what the state of Arizona has been able to do over the last few years. So it's well put together and received by Arizona officials. And in fact, just last week, the Record of Decision, or ROD, was approved by the federal government for this proposal. This will take the Colorado River and its negotiations through the end of 2026. But between now and 2026, the 7 basin states, Mexico, and the federal government, we're all negotiating to see what they're going to do after 2026, what the new guidelines will be. We've been in what they call interim guidelines from 2007 through 2026, and these new guidelines will go into effect in 2027. So lots of news coming up about how these negotiations are faring, maybe how the upper basin and lower basin are maybe making jabs at each other, whatnot, is what we'll see over the next few years. But really nothing that's going to move the needle on what the lower basin states are going to take. It's going to be locked in with this proposal and with the approximately normal precipitation in the last couple of years. So good news in that front. Things are faring well. Next slide. On to Arizona. We've had a lot of massive regulation changes.
Mayor?
Yes.
John, can you
Jake?
just click through?
Jake, can I ask you a quick question on, if you go back to the Colorado River?
Yes.
Would you just, in a 30-second blurb, try to sum up why Sahuarita needs to be concerned about the Colorado River?
Yeah, it's just the greater water resource context. When the Colorado River stressed, it provides stress to some of it could provide stress to some of the communities that rely on Colorado River. So think about city of Tucson, a big relier on Colorado River water. They store it and recover it each year. And if there's less Colorado River to go around, there is a likelihood it stresses the basins, the groundwater basins that we all share. So I think it's important to just follow it at the very least, even though any potential effects of a bigger Colorado River shortage would be mitigated, because we're directly using groundwater. So we're not going to be directly impacted, but it would be something for policy change, maybe 10, 15, 20 years that we'd be concerned about.
Right, and I know, Jake, the terminus is up by Pima Mine Road, but there's 2 projects to try to bring more CAP water down into the Sahuarita Green Valley area. So in light of that, it's probably really important that, we're watching the ability, because we can build the pipe, but if we have no capacity, we're not bringing any CAP water down.
Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilman, that's exactly right. There's two projects. There's the Renews by Community Water, and of course, our land partner, FICO, it has the pecan groves there, and they actually operate that through a GSF, so they directly receive CAP water from the Colorado River. They're very local. On to just more Arizona specific, there's been a lot of changes. I'm going to point to things not in our area but I think it's an indication of kind of what's going on. You see that arrow pointing down the bottom right? The Douglas AMA was created in December 22. And if John, if you have the clicker, if you just click through those, the Wallapai Valley INA was created in 2022 as well, towards the end of the year. Next click. The inaugural address that Hobbs gave closed the lower Hassayampa Basin to new appropriations of groundwater for the assured water supply. So it's not a closed basin. People can still do things. In fact, people can still grow on groundwater, but it's only people who already have an allocation, either for a certificate of assured water supply or for an existing designation. And if you click again, they closed the Phoenix AMA as well last summer, just about a year ago. So that, again, is not closed for all kinds of uses. It's just a very specific type of approval that allows new subdivisions to grow. Many of the greater Phoenix Valley cities have designations of assured water supply that kind of transcend this problem. You see the Pinal AMA. We actually have a designation of assured water supply in the Pinal AMA for our Santa Cruz system. In other words, we went ahead and got a permit long before that basin was closed for a certain amount of growth. And if you click through the next one, we'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing here in Farmers. We saw the writing on the wall, or the red scribbles on the map, if you will, and said, let's make sure that if and when it comes to Tucson, that we're ahead of the curve. So we're working to get a new designation of assured water supply for our Farmers water service area. What does that mean? It means we've groundwater model, and we've proven there's a certain amount of groundwater there that we can grow on, and we'll continue to work through the process at ADWR. We'll also join the CAGRD, And we're really proud to say that, thinking about rate gradualism, we were able to negotiate a ramp up in the GRD obligations or the GRD costs. So right now we're on track to obtain a designation of assured water supply from the Department of Water Resources so we can transcend future basin closures and other problems to kind of earmark our piece of the pie, if you will. And we expect to have that designation of assured water supply this year to begin starting in 2025, and then to implement this replenishment schedule, as you see here, by reporting year with the CAGRD. It's going very well. There's a lot of details to it, and it's the overall application process is taken about 1.5 years so far. And with that, I'm open for any questions.
Thanks, Jake. And I know when I first met with the mayor of the previous mayor of Maricopa, the city of Maricopa, because you were so forward-thinking and working through that, I know that allowed them to grow, where probably Casa Grande and Pinal wasn't as proactive on it. And then once you get behind or those close down, I know they've had some challenges. So I remember that from one of our first meetings and meeting, with the mayor up in the city of Maricopa. So I appreciate you being, forward thinking on that. And for John, I know when you were touching on the rate case and some of that, isn't that part of the issue with some of these small water companies, orphan water companies? They just don't have the capitalization to make that type of investment. And then obviously you could probably justify $6, but, the ACC comes back and, taking a haircut, so to speak, nothing to Eric or myself on that. But it makes it challenging for a small water company to, even do a rate case because of the cost and the investment. Am I off base or on target on that?
Yeah, I think smaller utilities often avoid going into the Corporation Commission for rate cases, and so then they neglect investment into the utility, and then it kind of spirals from there, and therefore it gets in a bad spot. And so, again, that great gradualism, you want to continue to invest appropriately so you maintain those assets and you never get into a position where you can't provide safe and reliable
Right, and they have
service.
sticker shock at the end of the day, but it's needed.
Yeah, and we're trying to avoid the sticker shock, I guess.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Any questions to my left? Questions to my right? Shane?
Thank you, John. Appreciate it, and Jake and Eric, really appreciate the partnership. Just not really expecting an answer, just to acknowledge that I recently learned that the parcel 30 that the town just recently acquired from Freeport and Anaconda is actually in either FICO or LQS's service area. I think it's FICO.
Yes, pharmacy.
So just wanted to better understand in terms of your long-term planning, how long-term is long-term to get utilities to that particular area, because that's that's the next growth area for for our community.
And I also know, if I can piggyback off of that, with El Toro Road, being realigned and those types of things, are those, and I know we're having conversations about that, but that's, I think, the importance of having a partner at the table, because when we're doing road infrastructure realignment, that might be an opportunity, right, when you're opening up trenches and doing those kinds of things, to at least be at the table and investigating that, if you wanted to touch on either one of those issues.
Yeah, and we met with town staff last week to discuss that project specifically, and we're actually had an internal meeting today. So it's definitely on the radar. We're looking at it. As part of long-term planning, part of it is also you need an end user. Part of our world is through the commission, your assets have to be used and useful to get them into rates. So you're not going to build pipelines to nowhere. So having projects like this to build infrastructure to serve, is important. So we are looking at it, and looking at all the elements that go into building a water pipeline, a mile or more to surface a project. So
right. And I know to that point, because you're butting up against all other types of water companies, Salvator Water, Community Water, and I know there's conversations ongoing on redundancy and can you tap in, if you wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. I think Eric talked about the community water interconnect that we're looking at. So when you're in close proximity to other utilities, there might be opportunities for partnership there as well. So we do look at that to see if there's opportunities.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thanks for being here, and thanks
Yeah.
for the continual updates with us and meeting with us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for making the time. Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Madam Clerk, item number 11.
Presentation, discussion, and possible approval of the general plan update public participation plan.
Thank you. Well, I had Anna Cassidy down, but I don't, I think that is not Anna up there. Yes, Orlanthea will be starting off, and then we have Robbie Aaron, our senior planner, and Michael Baker International, which I'm assuming is Michael Baker, will be presenting this item. Orlanthea?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and fellow council members. Good evening. This agenda item will include a presentation by Robbie Aaron. He is from the Michael Baker International Consulting Group. He is the Deputy Project Manager for the General Plan Update. They are the consultants that we chose to help staff and the town update the general plan. Tonight he will be providing information on the general plan update, as well as getting council up to date on the public participation plan. This is the first step with the general plan update, is getting council approval on the plan.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron. Welcome.
Thank you, Orlanthea. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me. As Orlanthea said, my name is Robbie Aaron. I am the Deputy Project Manager with Michael Baker International, and we are the consultant working with town staff on the general plan update, which will, as you'll see, will be a process that will go over probably the next year and a half or so, and then but probably a total of 2 years before this gets to ratification by the voters of the town. We also, on our team, have Gordley Group, who is familiar with the town. They have worked on town branding and other things. They will be helping us with our public participation and outreach. So some of you may be familiar with Gordley Group and that. And so, as Orlanthea said, I'm the Deputy Project Manager. Matt Kleisico is the project manager, and he would have been here tonight, but he had a conflict, so he apologizes. But you will see both of us in the future down here working with staff and you all to make this the best general plan we possibly can. I'm not going to go too deep into what a general plan is. The main things I want to focus on are that a general plan is mandated to be updated every 10 years by the state. So the last one was updated approximately 2015. So we're on that cycle again for that 10-year process. And then the other thing I want to say is that it needs to be ratified by the voters, and that this is something that ensures the short-term decisions are consistent with long-term community needs. One thing I will point out that was, kind of what we talk about is really interested in that water presentation, because we will have a whole discussion in the general plan about water and how that affects how the town grows. So I was kind of tuning in there, really keen on the water portion of tonight. And you can see under required elements is water resources. So there are required elements, there are elective elements, and one of the required elements is water resources. So the process. We started this process with staff in January. It's currently May. And the first part of the process is the recognized portion. That's us doing our research, talking to staff, what's going on, kind of getting to know the lay of the land down here in the town. So we had a public kickoff. Part of that is why I'm here tonight, to get this public participation plan, or as we're calling it, a community outreach communication plan, adopted by council. That kind of gives us the go-ahead to move forward with the process. We also do some other things like a baseline assessment and initial community outreach. Enrich is where we start to kind of draft the plan. That is like where we start putting the meat and potatoes on paper. Achieve is adoption by you guys, and then any other things that need to happen for that adoption process. And then the last part is the ratification, and that would happen by the voters in approximately May of 2026 as it stands right now. But throughout the process, we will be reaching out to the public, and that is something that happens from now until it gets through ratification. There will be constant outreach to the public to see what they feel the needs of the town are, but also to hear, to see what they feel the needs of the town are, but also to talk to you guys, and so that they can communicate with you guys as well, but also to let them know once this is adopted what it is we're proposing, so that they can make an informed decision at the ballot. So why are we here today? We're here to go over the Community Outreach and Communications Plan, otherwise known as the Public Participation Plan, Public Involvement Plan. There's so many different ways you can call it, but we went with Community Outreach and Communications Plan. As I stated, this is required to be adopted by Town Council per Arizona Revised Statute. This gives us like the go-ahead to start this process. It guides outreach and communication throughout the process. I do want to emphasize that this can change as we go. This isn't like this concrete plan where we have to do where we can only do all of these things, and if something comes up, we can't do that because it's not in the plan. This communication plan is kind of ever changing, and we might, do an audible to do something else because that better suits the needs of the town. And we really want to be clear that this provides for both in-person and virtual engagement opportunities. After COVID, we realized that a lot of people don't necessarily come in person anymore, and so we want to provide everybody an opportunity to participate where they're at and on their schedule. So that could be, them taking a survey after they put their kids to bed at night, or other types of things like that. In this plan, we also talk about community members and stakeholders. I'm not going to go through everybody on this list, but these are kind of the people that we will reach out to. We may not have hit everybody on this list, and so at any point, if you council feel like we missed somebody, we're happy to know about it, and we'll go to them. And we really want to emphasize that we have a go-to-them approach. So in this, you'll see that there's 3 planned community workshops, as I said, both in-person and virtual, a public kickoff and goal vision validation workshop, a revised vision and goals validation workshop, and then kind of the draft review workshop. These will all be in concert with kind of a let's go to an event and set up shop, and these events will be in conjunction with your guys' signature events, things that we know the community comes to. So we'll kind of go out to those signature events and set up a booth or something and get feedback there, as well as holding a standard workshop that you might have here and everybody can come to here. And then on top of that, the virtual workshop, where you might go online and take a survey. We tend to put all the materials up so everybody can see it and do it at their own pace. So the next thing was the mobile studios, which go into construction with the workshops. We'll also do youth workshop. Youth are very important to this process, as they are the people that are going to be in this town when this plan really starts to get towards its realization. This is a plan that goes, 20, 30 years in the future, and 20, 30 years from now, unfortunately, some of us may or may not be here still, but we know that the youth are the future, and so getting their input about what they want to see down the road is is a vital part to this. And then digital engagement. This kind of goes with the virtual workshop. We will have surveys. The places is like can be mapping exercises, and then other questions that we may pose through the town's Engagement HQ platform that we will be using throughout this process. I know that was kind of quick overview, so I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you again for having me, and as I said, you're definitely going to see more of me over the next couple years. So appreciate it.
An involved process it is that you have to start so early. And I know I've asked before, but, you know, one of the questions was, what happens if it doesn't pass? And I know typically they do, but if it doesn't, then you revert back to the original general plan. And you just keep on trying because it's a statutory requirement to move forward and get it passed. So, you know, and I've noticed when you're trying to get with the folks, you know, I know you have to have meetings, and like here, one won't typically probably show up. So I love the partnership with their signature events because, you know, between Spooktacular, Fiesta, Sahuarita, you know, we get thousands of people. So where they already are, especially busy parents, our average age is 37 here. So I like that particular, but yeah, it's amazing how long it takes to get this thing completed.
Yeah, and another thing I just want to tack on to that is, you know, throughout this process, if an HOA calls us and says, hey, can you come to our HOA meeting? We'll be more than happy to go to the HOA meeting, or, you know, virtually or in person if they would like that, to explain what's going on or do some more outreach. So like I said, it's not just these kind of couple things. We're going to try and, you know, go where the people are and meet them where they're at, because that's the best way to get the best input.
Yeah, and I know there was a long list of stakeholders you're reaching out to, but also keep us in mind, because if you have difficulty, you know, reaching certain sectors, you know, we have a lot of connectivity with some of these folks. So please keep us in mind.
Absolutely.
If you run into a roadblock getting into a particular sector, we might be able to help on that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Any questions before I entertain a motion? This does require a motion. If anybody would like to start us off, I'd be open to that.
I can do it.
Okay.
I move to approve the general plan update public participation plan.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Yep, appreciate you being here. Madam Clerk, item number 12.
Presentation, discussion, and possible direction regarding follow-up items from the Town Council's budget retreat of April 23rd through the 24th, 2024, covering the Town Manager's recommended budget for fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $119,504,150.
Thank you, and Mr. Dilly is going to lead this discussion. He's going to tell us how he's going to make us all happy based on the feedback we gave during the budget retreat. That's what I'm hoping, but that's up to Mr. Dilly. Mr. Dilly, with that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to come back to you and follow up to a couple of items. I wasn't quite sure if we're leading this out with finance side of it, Nalo, or is that, or are we doing AC for the budget side?
Public Works.
Oh, you're at the end of his, and then we have Dylan. Thank you. I see you. Dylan's going to cover a little bit of this as well. The presentation itself will have a few slides on the finance side of things for transportation fund.
Yep.
And then our pavement preservation, I guess in reverse order, and then we'll have Dylan come up and do a little bit follow up with you on some shade
Structures, yep.
issues. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Nalo, I guess you're going first. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to, Shane had mentioned, to provide some responses to a few questions that came up during our budget retreat last month.
And I'm sorry, Nalo, I just want to interrupt. Remember, we're all traffic engineers up here, so as you present, please remember that.
All right, I will.
Okay, thank you.
Keep that in mind. So the items that came up at our budget retreat was the Nogales Highway and Abrigo intersection improvements, particularly the left turn lane extension, the Quail Crossing multi-use path, basically the Quail Crossing Boulevard Road, and then the multi-use path separation, and then a third option for our pavement preservation program. I want to quickly go over the capital improvement for our town hall safety improvements. We had actually budgeted about $200,000 for this fiscal year. We were hoping to have most of it complete by the end of our current existing fiscal year. However, with delays in long lead times on some of the equipment and materials as well as the design, we're looking to push this into our budget for the next fiscal year. So you've seen this slide at our budget retreat. This is the layout or the design concept for the Nogales Highway and Abrigo intersection. Again, we're looking at cutting a median opening just a little bit to the west side of the intersection to allow for traffic to get into the shopping center. The question that came up is, instead of cutting a median opening into the concrete median, can we just extend the existing
Stacking.
left turn lane further so that way you have additional storage? So we had reached out to Somas, our design engineer on this one right here. The gist of the conversation that we had with them is that extending the left turn lane that we have right now without having that median opening, it will work. However, it comes with limitations or some other concerns that they have. And some of those limitations is increased inefficiency. So you're looking at the startup acceleration time. So what that basically means is if you have a long left turn lane, you're looking at if you're all the way in the back, you're looking at all the cars up in front to move before you're able to move up. So, and then by the time, if you're all the way in the back, it'll probably take you 2 to 3 cycles before you can actually make that turn into the shopping center. So that's, that's part of the concern right there is it's the increased inefficiency. And then you're looking also at a lot of the drivers. There'll be an increased red light running. I've seen this a lot up in Tucson at the Craycroft and the 22nd intersection where it's just one lane. A lot of people, if you're all the way in the back and you're approaching the intersection and it's turning yellow, you're going to try to go since you've been waiting for a while. So, and when there's an increase in red light running, you're looking at a negative impact on the southbound traffic. So what that means is when you're trying to make that turn into the shopping center and you have traffic going south, that traffic going to the south cannot proceed until the intersection is clear. So now there's a loss of time for the intersection to be able to clear. So that kind of contributes to the inefficiency.
Now,
of
can
having
that be somewhat negated, though, because of the left turn arrow could be elongated, right, to allow more of that?
Yes.
Because I'm still of the belief I know we haven't got there yet, but if you're doing that additional curb cut, the way it exists now, there is no stacking, and I still don't think that ends up fixing the problem of the backup in that left straight lane because, if they're going to go left at that early median cut with no stacking virtually, then I still don't think we're fixing the problem.
And that's my concern is if we do that first set of left turns, you're going to just start backing up further up the hill rather than further down the hill.
Right.
Because if they're stuck in that one, well, you've eliminated an entire lane of
traffic. Right.
So
Yep.
I'm not sure how that fixes the problem.
Right. Continue, though. I just want to interject then.
Mayor, I had us pegged at 5 minutes before the traffic engineers and all of us came out, but we beat that.
Oh,
So-
I was not worried about 5 minutes was way too long.
Wow. That was
We've driven that road many times, and I don't know.
Thank you, Mayor. Members
Please
of the council.
continue,
Those are all valid concerns and good questions. But basically, what you're getting with this new modification is having double left turn in there, but since there's not enough room up in the front at the intersection, we're putting that additional left turn lane in the back a little bit to the west side of it. So you're not only able to turn at the intersection when the light is green, but you're also able to turn into the shopping center at this one right here. It does not look like there's a lot of storage, but there is additional storage with this median opening right here.
So there was additional storage added to the,
To this
fir-
right
to
here.
this, to that
Yes.
second.
About
turn.
about 100 feet of
Yes.
additional storage.
Okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, you're going to get quite a few more cars being able to stack in the original left turn bay.
Yeah.
And then this
And
one
then,
right here.
and then this second turn function, you have to imagine, so as soon as Public Works told me, this was after the retreat, but as
Right.
soon as they told me, hey, listen, this is going to effectively be dual left turn lanes.
Mm-hmm.
They're just happening in different locations, but when you have a dedicated left, then this left is going to also be able to, for the most part, be turning left as well.
So when they
But
have a
that's-
dedicated turn arrow at the intersection.
Yes.
You're turning.
That you
You
have
have
two
to-
ways.
So,
to
so
go off
that
of
that helped me out. It's not going to be. I mean, there might be some conflicts on that second left, but for the most part, you're going to have two dedicated lefts
Right.
going into that shopping
But
center.
you're talking about in a pure world. You got people stacking up on that first left lane. They may never get down to the light.
Right.
Wait,
Okay. You got people stacking up on the first left turn lane, the new cut
The
we're
new
talking
cut.
about. Okay.
the new one that's being
The
proposed.
new one that's being proposed.
Yeah.
That's going to back up into the traffic lane. Nobody is going to get around them to get down into the light. So you're saying, well, I've got two turn lanes, but I only can access one of them.
Well, so the question is, how far on the new turn lane,
Mm-hmm.
the second turn lane that's outside of the intersection, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
guess further to the west.
Yes.
How long is that stacking going to be?
This one right here. Let me see.
If you said it's 100 feet, that's 5 cars.
No.
No.
The original turn bay is going to be extended by 100
About
feet.
100 feet.
Oh, you're
Yes.
extending the original turn bay.
The original turn bay by 100 feet, and then you have the second turn bay, and I just don't know how long that second turn bay is going to be.
Yeah, I
The
think
plans
the
didn't show
second
that.
one is 120 or something like that.
That's 6 cars.
I see cars trying to get out of the turn lane.
The first
get
turn
into
lane.
The first one and causing accidents, veering into the other lane to go around and causing accidents.
And I've noticed that up at Craycroft, because you're trying to get from the left-hand turn lane, or you're in the left lane going straight, you know there's a double turn lane coming up at Swan or at
Yes.
Craycroft. So you end up going, I don't want to wait, so I go around, and then they try to cut in and get into one of the two turn lanes. At least that's what I've experienced, kind of to your point, Debbie. But I know there's only so much road, right? And limitations.
Well, it's not so much that's true, Mayor. There's limitations on how much road you have, but I think the balance, the careful balance that the engineers are trying, the true engineers are trying to address, is the behavior side.
I did. I own that, though. I'm not an engineer.
The greatest engineering doesn't fix stupid, though.
But they do try to address or take into account the behavioral side of the driver.
Right.
Right. So what they're presenting here is more than doubling the existing capacity for turning left and acknowledging the limitations of that intersection,
Right.
allowing for another dedicated left essentially
Right.
to get into that shopping center. So the reality of just extending the existing going up,
Stacking, right?
you're going to have behavioral issues where people are like, hey, I've been in there for 4 cycles and I can't, and so
Turn left.
Yeah, and so they'd start doing really, really dumb things, right?
Which we're
So
seeing at Quail Creek right now. Some
we are.
issues.
So I think that there's a really careful balance that they're trying to weigh in terms of all that.
Diane?
If we cut that whole medium in half and make a third lane and make that all just the turning lane.
I think that's to the point of if it's one long turning lane stacking.
You still have your other 2 lanes to go straight because that's what's clogging up the traffic. You don't know if people want to go straight or if they want to turn.
Right. But I think that was the point. If we just made it one turn, left turn with huge stacking, and it took 4 cycles to potentially get through,
through the light.
then you're going to have stupid, bad
running
behavior.
the
So I think it's what I'm hearing is a combination of additional stacking and a second opportunity to go left.
If we go with this, we also have to make no U-turn at that light. Because what'll happen is you got those idiots making a U-turn, now you're gonna, people coming in, they're gonna stop making their left. They should
Right.
be making that turn when that light changes, because there'll be no oncoming traffic.
Yep, we can look into that.
I know.
Right.
So one of the Mayor and Council, thank you, Dilly. So one of the thing that I've learned from my discussions with SOMAs on this one right here is that the issue that we have at the intersection is not so much that there's not enough storage with the left turn lane. It's the timing at the lights right now at the signal. So I had a discussion with Paul on it about changing the timing right now, but with the modification right now, we had agreed that it's best if we wait until the modifications to the intersection are done before we go in there and do the changes to the signal, and that should help out with the issues that we're seeing at this intersection right now.
You know, I could see where, that's where I started with, you know, elongated left turn arrow. But I am happy to hear we've added additional storage, because even with that, the way it exists now, you're still stuck in the left straight lane trying to get up to the stacking,
Yes.
which allows only one lane, the right-hand lane, to go straight. I mean, so that's what backs up, is that left-hand lane, because people are waiting to turn left. So I could see the light helping for sure, but to Bill's point, you know, now that we're going to have potentially a second turn, left-hand turn lane, we don't want conflict with the ones at the second one doing a U-turn to go to the frontage road, and then, you know, crashing into the left-hand turn people that we've put there. So from the budget retreat, how much? It's mainly the additional stacking?
Yes.
With a combination of the elongated left-hand turn arrow,
yes.
potentially. Okay.
That is correct.
Mayor?
And then we have the right turn lane, we're adding that on there, and that was on the
Well, that could
original.
help too,
Yep,
because
yep.
again, you know, if all of this is conflicting, right, you only have one right-hand
Right-hand, yep.
lane going straight.
Yes.
And the people are still waiting to go right.
Yep.
So
That is
maybe a combination of all three of these things.
Yep.
I certainly believe it's going to help. I don't know if it's the solve. Shane?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Nalo, are you convinced that we're making the absolute most out of the existing left-hand turn lane? We're extending it as long as we can?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
So that we still protect our ability to have that second left going
Left
in?
turn, yes.
And what's the logic behind the recommendation on the length of the new turning lane?
So
since we're going to be paying money to cut the curb and lay asphalt
Mm-hmm.
down, I just want to make sure that you know we're doing the most that we can, so that we don't have to deal with this.
Yep.
So, what's the logic on the length of that second bay?
So when they, prior to Soma's putting together the design concept that we have right here, they actually came out here and did a traffic study about, you know, the see how many vehicles are going into the shopping center, what's the, you know, looking at traffic at the peak hours in the AM and then the peak hours in the PM. And based on the numbers they came up with, the amount of vehicles they're seeing at the intersection, the movements going into the shopping center, the lanes going through at these peak hour traffic hours. The best recommendation for them was, and also the configuration of our intersection. And now we don't have the space, the right of way to be able to add additional lane at the intersection. The best solution that they came up with is to have that median opening right there, so that way it'll ease up the traffic congestion at the intersection.
I totally agree with that. My question is the length of that bay.
The stacking.
What variable or factor is determines the length of that bay?
Yep.
Because if we're going to go in and cut that asphalt or that concrete and we're going to lay asphalt, let's do it once and let's do it right.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the traffic analysis, but that's looking at today.
Right.
That's not looking at 5 years from now or what. I would rather make sure that we're planning ahead and not just dealing with what today is.
Okay. I know there are standards for the the queue length for the turn lane. Beth, you want to chime in on this one?
I mean, as she's coming up, I'd like to know, usually these recommendations are coming because there's a consequence, a negative consequence for doing something more. But in this case, I'm hard pressed to see a negative to giving us an extra, 2 or 3 car lengths, right?
Or a physical limiting factor. Right now, we don't have a physical limiting factor.
Right. And there's, there could be additions. I mean, we're hearing about, I know it's just a little further up, but, adding a gas station to Walmart or what else is going in to the site. So I'm with you. If we're going to do it, let's do it.
Maximize it.
Maximize it when you're deploying. But Beth, you want to add to
So
that?
Nalo was getting there. To a number of the points that they do the counts. They will also, to Shane's point, take into account, they'll look at what's going on in that area with regard to what still has to be built. So you have the current day conditions, plus we know that there could be those apartments. You have
Right.
background traffic that just increases over time. So they would have looked at things like that as well when you're doing a traffic analysis like this. But to the question, they know at the peak hour how many vehicles are trying to go left or right or going straight. So it's not just that left turn lane, to Nala's point. You're also adding a right turn lane, and we're also doing improvements. Actually, the owner of the development is doing improvements on what is kind of the northwestish leg out of the shopping center.
Mm-hmm.
That right now it's 1 lane coming out. With the improvements, it'll be 2 lanes. So if you look at a cycle of the light, let's say it's a minute, and you have 30 seconds for north-south, 30 seconds for east-west. Out of that 30 seconds, 15 seconds might be the left turn. If you start giving them too much of that time, to Nala's point, people are going to start getting frustrated because they're just going to see cars going, they're going to be sitting there. So, okay, well, let's take some time from east-west, but then that starts to back up. So you get this balancing act. So by changing that configuration of the intersection, we've also changed how many cars can move through the intersection at a given time. So instead of people who might have had to wait previously, who wanted to make a right, who got stuck behind the people going straight, now those people will be able to make a right. So again, it's that driver frustration. People are getting through that intersection. To Nala's point, it is like having dual left turn lanes. The report would have indicated to us whether or not we would have to sign that as no left turns. Again, you have a certain amount of time that's associated with the person making the left and coming back. So depending on how much time was given to that signal, you might still be able to get people making that left turn, even if people are making a U-turn. We would probably want to sign the first one as no U-turns,
Right.
but the second one might be a question. Also keeping in mind that when we first do this, if you all remember when we opened the crossing,
Mm-hmm.
some of the drone videos that we saw of people doing really, really crazy things at that intersection, when we change a traffic pattern, it will take people a while to figure it out. But once they do, people will know. Again, you have the snowbirds who sometimes forget, or people who are new to the area, but people who are going to Dutch Bros Coffee, they will learn which turn they want to make during what time of day, that there are 2 lanes there. And again, when we first open it up, there will be some confusion. But it's a number of factors that are going into this that make this work. It's not just the addition of that extra lane.
So they did take into account potentially the apartments coming, the added traffic, the old pet shop that the credit union purchased, and they're going to, subdivide some of that up. So they have looked at all of that. So
yeah,
we're not
you'll
just,
look at the surrounding area that build out
right.
and
So
what's
we're not just
there.
looking at today when we have that one
Yeah.
opportunity to
Correct.
to do it.
I hope I don't come back and say I told you so.
Oh, you will. No, he'll be there, telling us that he told us.
Right.
Shane?
Beth, so I mean, outside of the added cost that we would incur by even further extending that second bay, what, from an engineering standpoint, what are we looking at by way of negative consequence by going beyond what the recommendation was in terms of stackable space on that bay?
I don't know that there is a negative other than the perception sometimes that if you built it for Christmas. But having 2 or 3 extra car lengths, I don't think that there'd be a negative to that for that second one, and asking them to take a look at that. And again, to your point, we're gonna be doing this anyway, that it's marginal, that extra amount. So. it
Mayor and
wouldn't have a
council, are you
negative
comfortable with that
implication.
if we push beyond the recommendation
Yeah.
and add, 2 or 3 extra car links?
We'll know that we've been trained in all of this.
Who,
Yes,
me
I think
push-
that would be.
Push the boundaries? No, I'm never comfortable.
So I think that would be an affirmative
Yeah, I think
from there, as much as we can do as we're deploying it and taking that opportunity.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks, Nalo.
I wanted to also add that we already have a similar setup, just right down the street. So on the left side, we have the Nogales and the Abrego intersection, but right down the street, you have the Walmart, Quail Crossing and Nogales. So very similar setup.
Right, yeah, because you can turn first left and then go a little further.
Yep.
And turn left, so, right.
Yeah. So.
Right, right, because it has filtered out a little bit.
Yes.
You've turned right on Abrego, which is good to have the dedicated right-hand turn lane. It's that conflict.
Yes.
You're right off the highway, and everybody's trying to go
Trying
either
to go-
straight
yep.
or left or right before they even, because I have an easier time turning at Walmart, which seems counterproductive, than I do turning back where the Culvers and Dutch Bros is.
That is correct.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Then.
You don't want to
Yeah.
ask that question. I'd go right by that slide on there. So I think you heard, staff's heard kind of our comfort level and what, I guess, the direction we'd like to see.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. So the next one that we have is the Quail Crossing Boulevard multi-use path and the Quail Crossing, the separation out there. So right now we have a 12-foot wide multi-use path. Basically, the average separation between the edge of the multi-use lane and the edge of the pavement for the road, you have an average about 10 feet throughout the whole project. It's signed 35 miles per hour right now, but there's a 360 section where the multi-use path comes in and ties into the road.
And now, I don't know if you can answer this, or Beth can. I was wondering, was it drainage? Was it money? Why did that run out as we got closer to the intersection and we weren't able to keep the separation with the MOU, the MUP?
The BP?
Yeah.
Yep. So the 360-foot section that we have right now that I'll be going over, the whole reason why we did the tie-in with the road pavement is for the drainage side of it. The limits for the multi-use path comes all the way out to right before you get to the intersection. If we were to come all the way up to the front with the multi-use path, we would need to narrow the lane approaching to the intersection so we have enough room for the 12-foot wide multi-use path.
Okay.
So that's the reason why it stopped and it crossed over to
Yep.
the west side. So some of the question that came up during our budget retreat was, can we look into putting up a barrier, either a concrete barrier, planters, or some bollards or something to separate pedestrian from the vehicular traffic. Reached out to our consultant on this one right here. They see a lot of risk challenges, basically on the liability side of it with us going out there and putting up a guardrail or a concrete barrier. So now you're kind of narrowing the space for pedestrian to go through. And then you're looking at your upfront costs for us to go out there and do the installation for a guardrail or concrete barrier. And then you're down the road, you're looking at the operation, the maintenance costs. Whenever a vehicle hits it, we're going out there and doing the replacement on it, and that's a cost that we'll have to do. And then overall, basically, you're looking at increased liability with putting up any physical barrier. So I took the two photos that you see right now on the slide. On the left side, it's right where that 360-foot where the drainage, the pavement connects, and then the right photo right there, it's your typical separation throughout the project. I put blue lines between the edge of the pavement or edge of the road and the edge of the multi-use path over there, and then the same thing over here. So on this side right here, the separation is basically 10 feet on this side. It's the same separation between the two. Between the two lines on that photo right there. So you have about 10, 11 feet separation on this side right here. So it is, and this is, I checked with our design engineer on this. It is designed per MUTCD. What their recommendation is, instead of putting a physical barrier in there, concrete or bollards or post and cable to prevent vehicles from running into pedestrian, the recommendation is, one of the recommendation is for us to remove the pavement basically on the multi-use path side of it, and install 6 to 8 inch rocks basically for drainage purposes to allow water to continue to go through. And then on the pavement side of it, on the road side of it, is to either install pavement markers, the little lights that you see out on the road, or rumble strips on the pavement side of it. So that's the recommendation that we're presenting to Mayor and Council, and want to see what your thoughts are on it.
Right. I know, and since we're all consultants up here as well as traffic engineers, I get a little lost on the liability because, when I think we also have liability by not doing something. So I'm, concerned from that perspective. I do like at least a change to it, an identifier, because the biggest difference between the previous left and right picture is there's a physical change between the road, the separation, and the MUP, where down where that left-hand, picture is still the left-hand picture, it just feels like it could feel like a continuation of the street, and going from that into the to the MUP. So even though well, I actually a combination of both of those, because I think especially as you're coming down and it's on that curve, anything we can do to bring their attention to it, especially under dark skies out in that area. My always concern was that the road looks like the MUP and the MUP looks like the road, where it doesn't further up. So
Mayor?
at least I'm a little more comfortable there. Yes, Shane.
So you heard Nalo reference the MUTCD. Did I say that right?
Yes, sir.
So that really is kind of this. Is it still a green book?
Yeah,
it's a green website.
Sometimes they the older
actually online.
The older engineers,
I don't know what book is.
the older engineers would have referred to that as the Green Bible of traffic engineering. So it's kind of this uniform standard that traffic engineers across the country kind of adhere to.
Right.
So when Nalo references that the MUP as it exists today in reference to Quail Crossing extension is in accordance to the MUTCD. That's really kind of the safety net for us, that we're adhering to nationally recognized standards. In this instance, I want you to know that I push pretty hard for ballards or big planters or something to create more of a physical barrier, because car versus pedestrian in every instance, car wins, right? So I but it seemed like the liability all of a sudden shifted to, if we put those kind of physical barriers there, that a car hits it because it's not in conformance with the MUTCD, then, and the driver gets hurt, we're liable. So it's kind of this weird paradox of standards. What you think as a closet traffic engineer like myself, versus what the real engineers are saying. In this case, I think our greatest liability is deviating off of what our traffic engineers are telling us. This solution allows for proper drainage to come through, because I even suggested let's put Jersey barriers up. As ugly as those would look, I know that they would stop a car from hitting a pedestrian, right? And the traffic engineers said, hey, we can't sign off on that, you're gonna give yourself a lot more liability. So what they came up with here, in terms of combination of efforts, you got the rumble strip along the white painted line, which is the shoulder of the road, and then you've got the aggregate, the 6 to 8 inch rock. I pushed for 12 to 16 inch, and they wouldn't go with that either. But you have the rock there. Both of those are intended to alert a driver that you're deviating off of your road, right?
Right.
And I think that's probably as good as
Well,
we're
and
gonna
that's why I was touching on the fact that if we do anything to change asphalt to asphalt, I think we get really far. And again, I do agree, if we're going over a standard and going against, that does open us up to additional liability. But both of those combinations, I think, goes really far to try to. Diane? I think those are the white poles. Those are the ones I think we have at Abrego. Don't we have those at Abrego?
Yes. These ones are just the flexible post.
So it would catch your attention, doesn't it? No, there's nothing there now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of the, rock rumble for the drainage as well as the white. Yeah. So that's like a double attention getter as opposed to asphalt running into asphalt.
So. When we're done with that out there, you'll have a good separation between the multi-use path and the road.
Well, that's what we're trying to achieve.
Yep.
Like the rest of the path, the road is as it is.
Yep.
Everybody has a comfort level there?
I grew up riding my bicycle on the road with cars, and I survived.
Right.
And no helmet, drinking water out of
Well, we're
the
not
hose.
recommending that to everybody, but.
What are we becoming a bunch of pansies? That's all.
So I think that means approval. Okay. Thanks, Nalo.
Thank you. And then finally, we have our Town of Sahuarita Pavement Preservation Program. I'll have Joe Marty, our street superintendent, present that.
Welcome back. It was good seeing you at the budget retreat.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, member of the council, staff. So as we know, for the last 5 years, we've gotten $1.2 million for pavement preservation. This slide kind of shows how our roads have increased over the last 5 years. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this, but we have it on our website in the Public Works main page. It gives you an idea of our 6-year pavement preservation plan, what our plans are, what treatments we want to do, and when they're going to get done. So on this slide here, it says, historically 5 years, we've gotten $1.2 million. Going on to Region 7 for fiscal year 25, we've adopted 18 more lane miles of road. And going into fiscal year 27, we're anticipating on getting 13 lane miles of road through Region 9. As you know, some of the challenges that we have with that is more roads, more treatments, more constituents. So some of the options that we talked about during the budget retreat were upping some of the funding. We are collaborating with developers to assure that, they come out and treat the road before we actually take it over for maintenance. And the town does have a crack sealing machine, and we're getting a little more proactive with crack sealing to try and give our best effort to maintaining these roads. As we talked about in the last 4 years, our pavement preservation plan has allowed us to increase our overall condition index of 3.61. It doesn't seem like a lot, but in regards to that, that means that we actually did mill and overlay of about 10 different subdivisions. So all of that raised it 3.61. So just keep that in mind going forward on how the OCI actually increases compared to the treatments we do. Real quick, the local roads are at an 80.7. The arterials and collectors are at a 75, and townwide we're at a 79.9, which is very good, in very good standings. Just to touch on this, I want to make a note that 1 mile of residential street is not equal to a mile of arterial road.
Yep.
We got striping, it's more intense with traffic control. You got crosswalks, there's so many different variables that are involved when doing an arterial versus
And the base,
residential
isn't
road.
the base different to some degree?
Yeah, the thickness of the road is different.
Right.
The way they construct the base is all similar.
Oh, it is,
But the
okay.
thickness of the road is different. And like I said, pavement markings and
Right.
striping and kind of like those delineators that just got put in, and all the engineering involved with arterials is a little more intense. Real quick before we get into the options, one of the things that I thought about since the last meet was when we're thinking about pavement preservation, let's think about a credit score. You know, how quick it can drop and how hard it is to raise. You know, I got the question asked is, if we would do that section of Nogales Highway between Pima Mine and Sahuarita, what will that do to our OCI? And frankly, not a lot. It might raise it a point overall. But we have to remember that we're going to be doing a 2 to 3 inch mill and overlay that could potentially turn into a full reconstruct to include its base in the next year or so, which adds dollars. So we want to make sure that we're keeping in mind that we don't want to focus too much on how much is this going to raise our overall OCI, but what is it going to cost us in the future if we wait?
Right.
Another thing to keep in mind is, you know, you talk about how many lane miles of road the town has. If we decide to dedicate our entire pavement preservation budget to redo that portion of Nogales Highway and push some of the local roads or even collector roads that need to get done further down the line, essentially we're paying off a big pain in the butt credit card, but we're not making the minimums on the others. Therefore, our credit score doesn't go up even though we made a huge improvement in one.
Right.
So let's keep that in mind when we're going forward with the options. I'll go over these first two briefly because you guys have seen these before. The first option is asking for $4 million over 5 years. That's bringing us to $2 million from 1.2. That keeps our OCI 78 to 72. That's very good standings. This option here just allows us to not only take care of those arterial roads, specifically that piece on Nogales Highway, but keep the same caliber of treatment to our plan moving forward. You know, this assures that we don't have to go back and start over. 4 years ago when we redid 10 residential roads, that was because, you know, we didn't really have a plan. So going forward with the plan that we have, this additional funds would allow us to maintain that high level of maintenance we have in the last 4 years.
Now, this is additional than we were presented at our budget retreat, right? This would be an increase over what we were
This is exactly what you saw at the budget retreat.
Okay.
This the 1.2. It's an additional $800,000 a year.
Okay.
So this is exactly what you guys would have seen during the budget retreat.
Okay.
Going forward to option 2 is an additional 2.5 over 5 years, which takes us to 1.7 from 1.2. We talked heavily on this subject here, and it was only because, you know, it was kind of hard to explain how can we keep 73 to 77 essentially is like what we're at now, but I'm asking for more money. You know, let's also go back and keep in mind that we've taken on all these additional roads in the last 5 years, you know, 31 to be exact. And we want to make sure that we can keep that high level of maintenance. Going forward, again, not focusing too much on the actual overall condition index, this option allows us to maintain our arterials and collectors, but it does require us to drop the caliber of treatment on some of the roads. In any case, we have to go out and spend a little more than we anticipated on an arterial road. This means that we would do something that is still good and what a road actually warrants, but it may not be what we anticipated on doing in the beginning of the plan. Option 3 is what you guys asked for. This is the best option that I could come up with after thinking about what I can bring to the table for an option 3. In a nutshell, option 3 allows me to continue with my pavement preservation plan for fiscal year 25. I've already gotten, started the process of that, so I want to leave that alone. But going to fiscal 26, it's asking for an additional $1 million, and this is to take care of that portion of Nogales Highway in between Pima Mine and Sahuarita. you know, to make our best effort to get us to 26, we're actually working with Sunland to do some mastic patching out there currently. We met with them today. If we're successful in getting that done this year, we should have no problems seeing Nogales Highway, you know, in 26 get that mill and fill that we're asking for.
Right. So this would help extend us
exactly
to get there.
Exactly.
And it would look better than the pothole patching, or seem better, or look better, feel better, right?
Right.
As we're driving it.
Because a lot of what's happening there is, you know, when they pave a giant road like that, you know, they don't have this nice, pretty seam in the middle. They start
And
from
I
the
still
end.
don't understand that. 'Cause
So they start from the end, and they'll have the seam in the middle of the travel lane, and that seam just, you know, it tends to give with the heavy traffic, the big trucks that drive on it. Then they create potholes, and then people try and swerve around the potholes, and now
Right.
we're getting into the shoulder. So it just creates a snowball effect there.
Try it on a motorcycle.
Yep.
Yeah.
I could imagine. So with the mastic patching, we want to go in there and we want to saw cut around all of the bad areas and put this mastic patch in. It's a fairly new method of patching that we want to try. It works like crack seal, has more aggregate in it. It's a little more pliable, and it seems to adhere better, and it's a lot cheaper than going out and milling sections out and adding asphalt back in, especially if we're going to go back in a year and mill and fill the entire area. This means that fiscal year 27 and 28, we can remain at $1.2 million. And the way that I plan on doing that is I'm going to separate Nogales and Old Nogales into sections and build them into those 2 years. So we won't be doing those roads all at once in one big hurrah. They will get done in sections. The plan is, if we do that, then going forward to 30, 31, when we can come back and you know, put a topical treatment on it, now we can seal the entire road, you know, at once, and essentially have a nice clean road that looks like we did it all at one time. But we are asking for $250,000 fiscal year 29. And this is just to assure that we have the money to adjust our treatments accordingly. So you could imagine if I have to break this into sections, by the time I get down to fiscal year 28, if my anticipation was to do a chip seal on an area and it deteriorated at a faster rate than I thought, that $250,000 allows me in 29 to still move with my plan. So that's just part of the risk that we have. You know, we may be coming back in 5 years and talking, you know, hey, there's a section that got a little worse than we thought in the last 3 or 4 years. Hopefully that extra 250 in fiscal year 29 will alleviate that. But, you know, we still have to remember there is a risk. You know, these roads deteriorate, you know, for different reasons. And, you know, without taking a look at the base, we don't know what they're going to do in the next 3 to 5 years.
And you may not be able to answer this, but I know on La Villita, we tried the newer type of asphalt. Has that, you know, it was cheaper. Well, when it was presented to us, it was going to be less cost, longer warranty, and things like that. I don't know if technology continues to change, but how has that worked out so far?
Was that green asphalt, Beth? So that section of La Villita and the section they did on Rancho, I believe, in front of Fry's, that treatment is wonderful. We don't have any issues with those parts of the road, but the volume of traffic is pretty high, especially over there by Fry's. But we don't know what that would do on a highly traveled and heavily traveled road like Nogales.
Right.
I believe it'd be successful, but I've looked into it myself, and the price is way out of our ballpark.
Oh, really? Because
yeah, it's pretty expensive.
It was, well, at least as an ROI, with the extended warranty and all of that, it seemed like, at least when it was presented to us, that it was a good deal over the long term of it. But I know with inflation and everything else, I don't know if that's affected it. But
so it's something that I do want to look into, as well as there's a treatment called Liquid Road. I'm actually going out later this week to go take a look at an area the city of Tucson did. But unfortunately for Nogales and Old Nogales, especially those bad portions, it's not, you know, efficient to put Liquid Road, because essentially it's covering up the original base and road that's there. So you're going to get your reflective cracking pretty quick. You know, your potholes are going to want to come through, and it's I think it's a waste.
Right. Okay.
You know, there are areas that we can do that, but I'd like to get these guys out to take a look at our roads first.
Right.
To make sure that it's a good candidate.
Thanks. You know we're asphalt experts as well, so I just wanted to add that to the.
Yes, sir. Public Works is still continuing to obtain grants funding for these road repairs, similar to the one that we received from TON on Pima Mine. So I just want you to know that we are doing everything we can to maintenance these roads with what we have, make
Not
them
go
last
backwards
longer.
in the OCI.
Yes,
as per our
exactly.
strategic plan.
We want our roads to last 20 years. And in order to do that, we have to touch them, 2 or 3 years, depending on what treatments we do. But I'm happy to share that fiscal year 27 and 28 are significant to me, and this is why this plan works, because we've done so well in the last 4 years that those 2 years, those treatments that need to be put down are pretty minor. Because our roads, especially in our residential areas, are in, the 80s. So.
Diane. Mike. Green light. Oh. Speak maybe a little closer? No, doesn't sound like it. It's on.
Testing.
Whoa,
Ah,
there we are.
that's it. So if we're successful in having our own garbage collection, and that's supposed to improve our roads or at least prevent deterioration at the same rate, is that factored into any of these variables?
Nalo, you want to help with the?
Councilmember Piolo, thank you very much. That's a good question. It is factored in. We'll basically be seeing an improvement, especially since with the program, there'll be a reduction in heavy vehicle traffic. So it is included in here.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thanks. So your recommendation is to go with the variable allocation option 3?
I think this is the
sweet spot.
Yeah, I think this is the best way for us to tackle the problem right now. We need to, like I talked about in the beginning, we need to pay off this big balance, but also gives us the opportunity to make our minimums. And so our OCIs will stay at level, if not raised,
Right.
Lightly. But we have to remember the goal is to keep it in that good range.
Right. I mean, I feel because, this isn't a one and done conversation, right? We're going to have a budget retreat next year. Obviously, this will be a big topic to report back on. How did it work? We have the ability to modify it, once again. I know based on AC's presentation, 1 or 2, couple years out, our financial status, I think, is getting better or would be getting better based on kind of the graphs that I remember seeing. Am I off base on that, AC?
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple slides following this that may
okay.
be helpful to the discussion.
Yep. Shane?
Mayor, I hope staff doesn't kick me too hard under the table, but I think now that you've heard the explanation of the options, I would like AC to go ahead and give the financial side of things.
Right.
Just as a refresher, and then let's double back to these options, and then you guys can give us direction on which one you want it to take. I do want, just for clarification on these options, Joe and Nalo, under option 3 and option 2, and I'm focusing on those 2 options because I think financially they're a little more realistic than option 1. What does it mean to your annual operations as it relates to your existing residential road program?
Is the question, would either one suffer, or would residential suffer more under one than the other?
I just want, I just want to understand
the impact
the impact of
residential.
either option 2 or option 3 on the residential side of
Yep.
the equation.
Yep.
Well, with option 2, it doesn't have a huge impact. There's a treatment that we like to use called HA5. I know we talked about it the last time. This gives us a 5-year warranty I love that treatment because it does that and it keeps the roads black. I have roads that are 7 years old that are still black, and constituents love that.
Yep.
Sometimes they don't care how it feels. You know, it's the matter of that it's black.
It
It's a
looks
black
fresh.
road. It looks fresh.
Right.
Now, the small impact that we see with that is I drop down to a PMM. It's still a good treatment. You know, we still get 3 to 5 years in a residential area with that treatment. We just don't have that 5-year warranty, and it will not stay black for that entire time.
So I like the
Is
first
that,
option
is that
better.
under both options?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, option 3 still allows us to hit some of our roads with that HA5 treatment. Some roads will have to get knocked down to the PMM depending on, you know, where they're at and the volume of roads in the residential areas. But, you know, keep in mind that with option 2 and option 3, if I have to drop it down to the PMM, if I have to change that caliber of treatment, it's not vital to our road. Because if I do it and I get a 3 or 4 year out of it, I'm still going to touch it and at year 4.
Right.
You know,
It
I'm
just
still going to get
seems like that repeat it again.
HA5.
HA5, it sounds like we're getting a longer warranty and a visual quality of life, which
Yeah, so
translates to-
that treatment actually will penetrate very little, but it will actually penetrate and it caps the entire road, so much so that they can't use it on 40 plus because of, you know, it does get slick. So it's one of my favorite treatments to use. I've seen a lot of success with it, but I've also seen success with PMM. And in residential roads, you can't go wrong. If I change the caliber down to a PMM for a residential road, it's not catastrophic.
Is the PMM just your chip seal? Is that what it?
No, it's polymer
It's just
modified master seal.
It's like a slurry.
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
seal? Okay.
It's a little thicker.
but not as long quite of a warranty and not quite
Right.
the look of it.
And again, there's other options too. You know, Liquid Road is right in between PMM and HA5. I haven't seen it yet. Self-leveling, it's thicker. It may be an alternative if we take option 2 or 3 when talking about what treatment are we going to do to these roads.
Right. And then to Shane's point with having the slides coming up from AC, so I'm still not memory-wise clear on the financial differential between option 2 and option 3 on the financial impact. But, you know, I think
Yeah, so option 3 just gives us an opportunity to take care of what's worse right now, and then resume our pavement preservation as we see it today.
Oh, I see.
Option 2 allows us to get that additional $500,000 in the course of 5 years to continue that high level maintenance
Right.
that we're doing now and not have to change so many treatments along the way.
The significant difference, though, right, between option 2 and 3 is that on option 2, which is probably, as you annualize your expenses over 5 years, is probably a cheaper option than option 3.
Yeah.
But what option 2 doesn't allow staff to do is take a big chunk of these arterials and get them taken care of instead of little pieces of it, right?
Right.
Is that essentially the
Yeah, exactly.
but option 3 does mean that you're deferring work on some of your residential roads.
or the treatment isn't quite as the quality.
Well, I heard both. I heard
Yeah.
there might be some deferral, but also the treatment might go down a little bit. So
Yeah.
I just overall from the public standpoint, just want to make sure that the council is clear on these options because I
Right.
think there is an impact in terms of quality of life. You know, when you're seeing projects get deferred or, you know, the neighbor down the road had a nice blacktop
Right.
and you said my road has now been treated and it doesn't look
The-
like
even on
so-
day one is quite as good, right?
Right. So I just want to make sure, you know, from an operational standpoint, there is a struggle on these big arterial projects, not having the cash to just do it all and get it done, as opposed to this piecemeal approach. It makes it really difficult,
Yeah.
and it's not cost effective really on the large arterials because you've got mobilization costs, and so if you can only do chunks of that road at a time, you're paying for mobilization costs time over time.
Right.
To just get the road done. So, you know, I see the benefit and the consequence of both options, but unfortunately, we don't have the money to just do it all the
Right.
way we would like it to. So
Right.
these are options. Again, I just, so if we can get AC to jump into the financial side of it and then we come back to the options and get your take on it.
Sure, and thanks for doing that. And I know Simon had brought up at our budget retreat, part of the thought process is we do have these reserves. It's the people's money, right? And to keep it to the highest quality that we can, and back to the warranty and all, the look, all of the above. At least that's what I felt from the council, that the most we can do, staying within financial constraints, knowing that we're going to be improving over the next couple of years, I think, but let's go with AC and see if I was correct.
Before I jump into my summary slides, I just want to point out that option 3 is actually half as costly as option 2.
Okay.
It's the other way around, yeah. So what we have identified here is 1.25 million, and option 2 is 500,000 each year over 5 years, which is 2.5 million. Okay. So maybe there's an option 4 we need to consider in the future. So,
yeah,
okay.
I mean, realistically, that piece of Nogales in between Pima Mine and Saurita is what's putting the damper in our program right now. Right. The rest of Old Nogales and Nogales can be built into our pavement preservation program. We may have to defer some subdivisions, but there are some that we got some mill and fills on the last few years that we can, afford to push a year to do Old Nogales.
But I know we're looking at the mastic, patching, so this all could change a little bit, right? To where that could give us some extra years, as opposed to just keep filling potholes until the whole thing falls apart. So I'd be interested to get that kind of feedback on.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I can put something together. I think my main goal is I want to make sure that we can do this stretch on Nogales, but also continue with the plan.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. AC?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thought I would start us off. Let me see there. Thought I'd start us off with a reminder of where things look in the current fiscal year budget. So this is what we presented to you 1 year ago during the budget retreat, and this is the HERF fund and the 5-year fund balance outlook. Just as a reminder, the HERF fund is formerly the HERF fund, now the transportation fund. Right. And as you can see here, we have deficits starting as early as 2026 overall deficits. That changed when we got our new census information, and that pushed deficits in 2025. And then annually, we were underwater by about $500,000 a year. So this picture gets bleaker the more years into the future. So we spent a fair amount of time last year talking about revenue diversification, the need to diversify our revenues, and hopefully this slide provides a trigger in your mind of that discussion. So in response to both the HERF fund deficits and our discussion on revenue diversification, Council did enact in the current fiscal year an incremental 2% increase to our utility taxes, and to dedicate that increment towards our roadway system, roads and streets. That had a drastic impact to the now transportation fund and our outlook for the next 5 years. So this slide is similar to the one that I presented just a couple weeks ago during the budget retreat. The only thing that I changed here is the fund balances there's 2 sections to fund balance now. You got the dark gray section, and that would represent our minimum fund balance requirement in the HERF fund. Mm-hmm. And just like in the general fund, 25% of what we budget for in the fund, we should have sufficient reserves to basically cover us for 3 months out of the year if we ever have sort of a catastrophic impact to our revenue stream. Amounts in the light gray section represent balances that would be in excess of that minimum. So by policy, just by way of reminder, if in our efforts here tonight to adjust our allocations towards pavement preservation, the fund balances are not sufficient to meet the minimum fund balance requirement that you see here, the general fund has to step in and make up for the difference, so that our minimum fund balances over there have to be sufficient to cover the general fund, any deficiencies in the HERF fund, and also the wastewater fund if that were to come into play. So with respect to option 2, and that's the one that allocates an additional $500,000 every year, and you compare that to the slide, option 2 is fully fundable. So if you look in fiscal year 2029, you see our excess fund balances at 2.7 million. So we could fully fund option 2, and we would still have about $200,000 in excess of our minimum fund balance requirements. So the general fund wouldn't have to step in any way under that option. You see that our annual change in fiscal year 2029 is $592,000. That's an indication, and if you look at the prior years, it's a little bit less than that. It grows slightly, but that's an indication that we could, on an ongoing, continuous basis, fund that $500,000 yearly in 2030 and beyond. Okay, but also looking at this slide and considering option 1, that allocates an additional $800,000 a year, or $4 million over 5 years. According to this slide, we would be deficient. We wouldn't be able to pay for that. We're close. So in fiscal year 2029, we have about $3.9 million in total fund balances. So that would be about $100,000 short of what we had hoped to achieve in option 1. This option would consume all of the resources in the transportation fund. So that means that the general fund is going to have to step in, right, to the tune of about $1.2 million in fiscal year 29. This option is also not sustainable in fiscal year 2030 and moving forward. We would have about a $200 to $300 ongoing annualized deficiency.
100,000.
No, the 100,000 is a cumulative. So to fully fund option 1,
Right.
we need $4 million. We have $3.9 million in 2029.
Right.
But on an annual basis, we're going to be about $200,000 to $300,000 short.
Right.
Because we're allocating another $800,000, and our amount in fiscal year 29, the annual change is only $592,000.
Yep.
Okay. And that's probably going to grow as time moves forward because we continue to take roads into our system. So that's a problem that would need to be addressed. And it's one of the things that we contemplated when we talked about our revenue diversification.
Right.
If you recall about the incremental utility tax, we looked at that as sort of our short-term solution to fund our sort of immediate needs and to start building up some of our fund balances. And I also think NALA, with his conservative budget approach, we have some additional fund balances that we didn't even anticipate at that point in time. But I suspect our ideal situation would be option 1, and that is sort of what we considered last fiscal year. To get to those levels, we're going to need a long-term, ongoing funding solution to get there, that the utility tax was never intended to be that.
Right. Is there option 1.5? Because it sounds like there's a sweet spot in between option 1 and option 2 that, unless I'm misreading or mishearing, but correct me if I'm wrong.
So, so Mr. Mayor, I can solve the problem financially. Yes, there is maybe an option there to consider. Option 1, you still have a little bit of capacity above the minimum fund balance requirements. So, option 1.5,
Right.
You're probably going to go below the minimum fund balances in the fund, the minimum fund balance requirement. That means the general fund would have to come in and step in and set aside additional fund balances to cover that deficiency. But yes, we can do that.
Right. Yeah.
And regarding option 3, obviously that's cheaper than option 2. So from a financial perspective, there'd be no concerns with option 3.
Right. Well, a lot to think about. I think, because of course, remember, we revisit this each year. I guess my comfort level would be 2, because from what I'm hearing from the residential roads, I'd love to see the mastic seal, how that works on Old Nogales Highway. Again, we're only doing a year. We're not going below the fund reserve balances and then revisit it, but that's just one person's opinion on it. Anybody else like to weigh in? Because staff's going to need, Shane, yes.
Joe, Nalo, how much is this? You keep referencing the Nogales Highway between Pima Mine Road and Sabarita Road. How much is that project estimated?
Based on last year's numbers, $1.7 million. And that's for a 2-inch mill and overlay. That's not considering they may want to go 2.5, I have to do a core sample, which we talked about doing this next week, to see how bad it is going through, see how deep the cracks are.
There's a lot of truck traffic there. A lot of heavy truck
Truck
traffic.
traffic, right. Well, and again, I think that goes back to, I think, we're looking at a potential, mastic seal. We have to do more investigation. I don't know if we're probably to the point. I'd still like to keep up the best treatment we can to the residential roads while we're investigating Old Nogales Highway and potential options. And if that seal, extends it a little bit longer to this graph looks a little better on there.
Mayor and council.
Yes.
So, what the council did and is credited for this last year in making the decision that you made with regards to the utility tax has really made it possible for us to even be considering additional options. But it's not the long-term solution.
Right.
We'll have to engage in conversation again about revenue support for this ongoing operation. I have another question for staff. When you consider option 3 and option 2, I know that they're very much different approaches to maintaining the infrastructure. But if option 1 is really the ideal, if we could say, yeah, you've got another $4 million over the next 5 years, we can't say that today. Which of those two options gets you closer to option 1, in your opinion, from an operational standpoint?
For me, it's option 2, because I go back to look at like Avenida Midla area. We've gotten that a few years ago, and we haven't put a treatment on it. And so option 2 allows us to have that little extra to build that into maybe next year, instead of pushing it till fiscal year 28 when it's supposed to get done. So it's going to allow us to treat roads that are still in good condition but could fall apart in the next year because we haven't built them in because they're owned.
Right, and then we're paying the bigger price down the road from doing that. Bill?
Well, so to optimize, it sounds like option 2 is the best
Right.
of.
It sounds like from the financial standpoint,
Yeah.
AC is saying, hey, we can support option 2, it's sustainable.
Yep.
And if staff is saying that option 2 really gets us closer to the ideal,
Right.
which is option 1, then
Gives us some time.
I think that's,
Yeah.
Yep.
And one thing to keep in mind that without $3 million today, we couldn't touch all of Nogales and Old Nogales in one shot.
Right.
It would take $3 to $4 million to touch it in one shot and be done with it. So we have to keep that in mind as well.
Right.
I do have to break it up at one point or another.
Everybody good with option 2?
Yep.
2? Good. Okay. Thank you.
Option 2.
Thanks for reporting back. Thanks for doing all the heavy lifting and hard work. I appreciate it. Remember, if you show up on Monday, the 27th, you'll be by yourself. So show up on Tuesday.
Promise?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
we have the shade structure. Real
Oh, that's right. I apologize.
We have what?
The shade structure, Park and Rec.
It's not on the agenda.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Item 12 was all we had.
No, it was part of the budget parking lot.
I'll be quick, I promise.
That's okay. He's
Mr. Mayor,
closest to you, so
members
better
of the
be.
council. This is really more of an update. So we did have the question of the budget tree regarding shade over portion of the Animax playground. We've been doing some investigation, trying to get some quotes on what a shade would look like for that. Looking at a cantilevered shade structure that our reps are not 100% will solve the problem during every season of the year.
Right.
We're looking at about $60,000 for that shade structure. For a shade structure that's going to cover the entire towers, the whole section of the playground, you're looking between $200,000 and $300,000, which is why it was initially pulled out of the project to try to keep that project a little more manageable. Another thing we're investigating right now, I know Shane had mentioned during the budget retreat that it's primarily that one slide, right, Shane, with the not where it's not the full tube slide. So we're investigating quotes just to see what it would look like to get just that tube slide replaced with a full tube slide. That might solve at least the partial issue until we can maybe do a larger shade program later, more in the future.
Right.
So we're still waiting on that quote to come in, but that's the update that I have at the current moment. Any questions or direction?
Yeah. Shane? No.
I have one thing.
Yep.
American Dermatologists Association or whatever gives out shade structure grants every year. I don't know if you're aware of that, but
I
there's-
wasn't, but we are pursuing grants, so I will
that's
look into
just
that. Thank
the
you.
little one that I remember in the back of my head.
Yeah, thank you.
So Shane, knowing that there's still a quote coming in and things, do you need direction, or will staff still work on it? I mean, there's a multiple $100,000 fix, there's a $60,000.
Obviously, the multiple $100,000 fix is off the table because, I mean, we pulled that out to keep the project under budget.
Right.
Or within budget.
Within budget.
The cantilever seems a little interesting. I mean, it doesn't
Seems
make
like
you-
we'll keep that on the table
Yep.
for
Yep.
discussion with high interest on the quote for the fully enclosed slide that might address it in the interim.
Which
anyway.
probably overall would keep us within the same budget capacity.
Yeah, I
because-
think even if we can't knock it out this fiscal, that we can probably handle that slide replacement next fiscal out of just operations.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Okay, I
Okay.
think we're good.
Yep. Thanks.
thank you much.
Appreciate it. Okay, now don't show up on Monday night, show up on Tuesday night on the 28th. Having no more further business, we're adjourned.